r/NoStupidQuestions. Joshua says, why are American Southerners so passionate about Confederate generals when the Confederacy only lasted 4 years, was a rebellion against the USA, had a vile cause, and failed miserably? OK Disaster 2022 says, having grown up in the South and had family who fought for the South, I think part of it is ego. As a kid you want to know you come from winners, and the Confederacy was frankly a bunch of losers. As a kid you want to know your ancestors were good people, instead of a bunch of slavery supporters. So you create psychological dissonance which is reinforced from your family and teachers. This is my theory as to why it persists. To me I realize there's a lesson to be learned. Live your life in a way that honors your descendants, not that honors your ancestors. Your ancestors are dead or gone. We can make the world better than they ever could. Fluff and Puff says, I like your conclusion. I've never heard that before. Reddit is garbage 666 says, it's also been woven into current day politics. I know some people who are conservatives w/e that means now, and we went to the same college, and yet they swear the Civil War wasn't about slavery when we all had to take multiple US history classes. They just listen to their favorite political propaganda outlet. Druckhold Reality says, most of the erection of Confederate statues and such didn't happen during the Civil War or in the years immediately following it, but decades later, during periods when uppity Negroes were agitating for civil rights and needed to be reminded of their place. That aside, after the war was over and Southern politicians returned to Congress, they didn't want to admit they were the bad guys, so they invented the myth of the lost cause, where the war was not fought over slavery, oh mercy no, rather, it was fought over things like states' rights and a genteel, mannered culture in the South, almost entirely imaginary, that the brutal, uncouth Yankees has trampled. r/NoStupidQuestions. Maya to I says, why do I randomly get motivated in the middle of the night? I'm tired and depressed all day, but when 2 AM hits, I'm ready to work out for an hour without feeling any depression or tiredness. Why does that happen? Can I somehow get that to last longer? Zenfi1 says, anxiety. During the day, you have social obligations and things you need to do for work/studies. At night, you are alone and aren't expected to be doing anything other than sleeping, so you get a temporary relief from the weight of expectations, be it external or self-induced. Refugee Firstmud says, because in the middle of the night, you have a plausible excuse not to actually take action on any of these motivations. Once cold daylight hits, you've got no such excuse except your own inertia. Teketwo4343 says, Jimina, Jimady, Jimin Jimady, what's it spell? What were we doing? Anyways, wanna go do something? Great Pineapple 8588 says, I told a doctor that in the middle of the night I can jump out of bed, put on some high tops and play basketball. He said here take these benzodiazepines. Boo. Accountant Talep says, I think of 4 AM me as aspirational me. She has so many great ideas and will totally do them. 9 AM me, 2 PM me, 7 PM me, they are not aspirational, they are just trying to make it through the day. r/NoStupidQuestions. Diligently 9820 says, is it okay to refer to a child as they if you don't know their gender? Or is this offensive? Please don't be offended by my ignorance. I genuinely don't know who to ask, and I really don't want to offend anyone. My son made friends with another child in his class, Axel. They are in first grade and Axel has 3 other siblings and they all have gender neutral names and gender neutral appearances, long hair etc. Let me clarify, I have no problem with this. However, I have had very badly and I have a hard time remembering names. I misgendered Axel. I've always referred to her as a him and was mortified when I realized. I did notice that Axel's mom genders her children. When she speaks about them, she doesn't like the loud noise. He likes to go bowling etc. and doesn't use they. So I guess my question is this: if I use the they pronoun, is that offensive? I recently invited her and her 3 children to go bowling with us last weekend. I just felt really awkward BC. I couldn't remember the names and didn't want to misgender anyone, so I barely talked BC of my anxiety. I will learn names etc, but it takes a bit. I'm very socially awkward because I just left a relationship where I wasn't really allowed to have friends, so this is my first time in 6 years in a social situations, playdates etc, and I don't want to mess it up. Tie. Byman 666 says, we call individuals they all the time. Doesn't matter if we know their gender or not, so no, not offensive. There's nothing new about this. Mesduin says, they when you don't know someone's pronouns is perfectly acceptable. The only time it isn't is if you know they don't use they/them pronouns at all. Don't worry, you're doing fine. Physifist says, bro, this literally happened to me. There was a kid in my school whose gender I genuinely couldn't tell for like a year. Diligently 9820 says, I apologize if my question offended anybody. I literally typed it trying to be as respectful as possible and coming from a good place. This question may seem stupid to you, but in an extremely rural community filled with Mennonites, Amish, and trumpets it can be a touchy subject, hence crowdsourcing for other opinions. I appreciate the advice, and I will be using they moving forward. Friday 444 says, I started doing this after getting yelled at by a mom. When I was a waiter at a restaurant back in 2007 or so, I asked what she'd like, pointing to a 2 or 3 year old in a pink dress. The mom flipped out of me because it was a boy. I meant nothing by it, was just using context clues, and assumed the child's gender. Never made that mistake again. r/NoStupidQuestions. Muted Reputation 6140 says, why cell phones never show up in our dreams if we're using them for 12 hours a day? Still can't find the answer. Max Webster says, they show up in my dreams, but I'm unable to use them. It's one of the things that tells me it's a dream. Puzzle Related Ear 858W says, they show up in my dreams all the time. Themitegram says, they might do, but you don't remember dreaming about them, because you don't remember everything you dreamed about. Rotzverpapelt says, I asked that myself a while ago. Maybe because I grew up without mobile phones. They didn't enter my life before the age of 20, and even then only as stupid brick phones. Smartphones became a thing more recently for me. Suppressed Coot 23 says, I've dreamt about mine once, but couldn't work it. I was trying to set an alarm and I think the clock was going backwards or something. Same with cars, if I'm having a dream where I'm already driving I'm fine, but if I have to start it, I don't know what I'm doing. Florist 23 says, never. Flocknk 422 says, because no phones exist in that dimension yet. r/NoStupidQuestions. Home Even 2 says, what does Turkey gain by denying the Armenian genocide? What do they lose by admitting it? As Dak66 says, national image can be a big thing. Look at the number of Americans who still create alternate narratives about the Civil War. Moggers University says, denying it maintains political image and avoids reparations, but admitting it fosters reconciliation and global credibility. It's a tough call with complex consequences. Hilamdad says, imagine if George Washington was accused of leading a genocide. Do you think Americans would be keen on recognizing that genocide? Similar situation in Turkey. Dilettante says, they could open themselves up for lawsuits and reparations if they admitted it. They would also lose the moral high ground when they accuse other countries of human rights abuses. Mracoffee4 of us says, also for pretty much the same reason Southerners in the US deny the horrors of slavery to ease their consciousness. Usernaman77 says, Erdogan's Turkey is not the same Turkey that existed when this happened. That is good for him because it keeps him off the hook for reparations. It is bad to point this out though because it is not as close to the old Turkey under Ataturk or the Ottoman Turkish Empire imagery that he wants to evoke. This would be like Germany consciously trying to say they are recreating the Third Reich and then getting very awkward when someone asks if they are doing everything the original Third Reich did. Ironic, considering that the only reason Europeans knew about the Armenian genocide was because of the meticulous communication records of the Germans with their respective allies during WW1. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.